when you let them play, Tottenham Hotspur are by far the best team in the Premier League. Those were the words of Man City manager Pep Guardiola after he saw his side blow a 2-0 lead to Spurs, who created wild scenes at the Etihad for a second season in a row. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham, Tottenham!
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. Please don't forget to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Acast and get every new episode direct as it's released. You can of course follow us across all social media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram at @e_Spurs. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr, and for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms, head to our website, which is www.espurs.blogspot.co.uk. On the e-Spurs podcast tonight, we'll be reviewing the 2-2 draw at Manchester City, which saw Spurs snatch a point, and we'll be taking your questions from the panel as always, and finally previewing the FA Cup tie on Saturday against Wycombe. So, before we talk all things Tottenham Hotspur tonight, let's introduce tonight's panel that will be talking us through the next hour. It's Jason.
Evening, mate. Good to be
Jason.
out from behind the sofa where I've watched most of the City game from, I think.
Oh, I'm sure the
hiding behind it.
I know, tell me about it. And we've got Ian with us.
Yeah, evening lads. I've just thawed out after a very chilly trip to Manchester, so looking forward to tonight.
Yep, same here, Ian. At least you're coming back with something worthwhile. And I'm pleased to announce tonight we've got James Mccarthy joining us. James, how are you?
Hi guys, thanks for having us for my e-Spurs debut. Thank you.
No problem at all. Well, what a performance that Manchester City result gave us. A 2-2 draw. We'll come to you first, James, actually being your debut. What did you make of it, James?
It was one hell of a game, you know. I'm sure you guys have said it before, but being Tottenham, we don't do things the easy way. I mean, going 2-0 down like that, any other Tottenham team that I know apart from this one would have completely capitulated, you know, under Redknapp, under AVB. We'd have gone on and got thrashed, but I think just the courage of this team, and they really pulled together, and it was a great finish.
It really was, and I mean, it's crazy now when you think that 16 points recovered from losing positions, more than anyone in the Premier League. I mean, the thing is, James, what you would argue that's probably one of City's best performances of the season, one of Spurs' worst first halves. To get something out of the game, like you said, it just really just shows how far this young Spurs side have come, doesn't it?
Definitely, you know, I think that's one of our, as you say, that first half performance was absolutely shocking, and to say that we even got a point out of that is just amazing. You see Arsenal celebrating it like they'd won the league, whereas our players are all gutted to have drawn against a team that's splashed out 300 million on players.
Yeah, it really does show, doesn't it? Just the parallels in terms of, from Spurs' perspective, just how much at the moment things are going so well, and every result, if it isn't a win, it reacts as a disappointment. We're going to come to you next, Jace. What did you make of it? I mean, bearing in mind, excusing the first half where we lost Alderweireld going off and being 2-0 down away to City, to show the character to come back. I mean, it's un-Spurs-like, isn't it?
Well, certainly, result-wise, it was un-Spurs-like, because, you know, we put in a similar display up there a couple of years ago and got absolutely battered 6-0, didn't we? And then, 2 years ago, got battered 4-1 up there. I didn't think we actually improved that much, in fairness, in the second half. Really strange. All the things I expected us to do, I thought we'd really win the midfield battle, and yet we seemed to get physically. We lost so many physical duels all around the pitch, and I'm sure we'll come on to Victor Wanyama's performance later, but even though he was probably our best player on the day, even he lost a physical battle to Aguero that finished with the second goal. You just would never see Hugo having a game like that, would you, either? You just can't predict things like that happening in football, and we were all confident going up there. We'd seen how poor City were the week before. You looked at their team sheet come up, I thought, how are City playing this? Is Zabaleta in midfield? Have they gone suicidal and left Yaya in there on his own? But you just couldn't explain then what then happened for the next, certainly 70 minutes. And then the strange thing is that just at a stage when we're probably at our most disorganised, where we've got Wanyama at the back, we've lost, or Dembele's then gone off, we've just got Harry Winks in midfield, and suddenly we made an improvement. And the whole game just seems a crazy game to me that you just can't explain properly.
Yeah, and I think the first goal back from Dele Alli coming onto you, Ian, I mean, it did seem to kind of spark us into life, and pretty much it really did dent City's confidence. But I just want to pick up on what Jay said there. Question to you, Ian. What do you make that slow start being down to? Because the week before against West Brom, we came out the block so fast, and you could argue it was the polar opposite.
I think, and this isn't the Man City pod, I think that, you know, we have to give a certain amount of credit to Pep Guardiola and his City side, because they'd obviously done their own work. They'd obviously set out to keep our full-backs pushed back, and that's exactly what they did in the first half, and, you know, for like the first sort of like 10-15 minutes of the second. And I think that, you know, for a while, I think we were being out-Spursed by City, if you know, pardon the expression. So I think that was the catalyst, because, you know, they started off very, very strong, very, very quick, you know, and you know, in the first half, you know, Hugo, you know, pulls off a couple of free saves that on another day would have gone in. You know, and I think it just showed the maturity that we've been able to go up there and not play well for, I'm going to say, for at least 60 minutes, you know, and come away from the Etihad with a point. So, you know, I think that was the difference between the two games.
A quick word on Hugo there, Ian. I have to make a point that I'm not sure many have seen it. At the end of the game, he takes himself across to the away end, holds up his hand in atonement for the errors he's made. This is a guy that has saved us week upon week. I know his mistakes do seem to come in the big games, but could you argue for what he's done? I mean, he's probably arguably one of the best goalkeepers in my lifetime growing up watching Spurs. I mean, do we afford him those kind of errors, or is it a part of his game that he needs to eradicate? What do you put it down to?
Well, I think it was interesting that he strangely got the biggest cheer of the post-match. The crowd accepted that on the face of it. Do you know what I mean? He did come over and he did put his arm up, and I just think that, like it's been said by yourself and Jason and others on social media, it was just a blip, you know. And look at the interesting dilemma we had at the end of last season, where we were trying to pick his save of the season out, because there was just so many. So I just think that we put it down to, you know, a bad day at the office, and even once the second goal goes in against that De Bruyne manages to put away. Even from that point onwards, you know, there was never any issue with the crowd and with Hugo, because, you know, he is such a, you know, just normally so dependable when it comes to keeping the ball out of the back of the net. So I think that most of the Spurs faithful have forgiven him, and it's move on to what I think will probably be his next performance, which will be away at Sunderland.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, Hugo Lloris has proven, God, season in, season out, the amount of points he saved Spurs over, you know, the combined. We've got a guy there that arguably, you know, it'd be very hard to improve on in goal. There's definitely that kind of appreciation from the crowd that we know how good Hugo is, and affording the errors he makes, you know, he's a wonderful, wonderful goalkeeper. Coming back to you, James, a man who's been speaking about recently this season, and Jason's picked up on it as well, Victor Wanyama. Again, another breathtaking man-of-the-match performance. I mean, maybe first half wasn't great, but second half, again, back to that kind of consistency we've seen all season. Can you believe this bloke only cost us 11 million?
I cannot believe it. I mean, you look at Granit Xhaka yesterday for Arsenal getting sent off for, the third time he's been there. And you think what they paid for him was treble what we bought Wanyama for. The fact that we didn't play so well in the first half can't be attributed to him at all. I mean, as you say, Man City came out of the blocks brilliantly, and Guardiola kind of proved why he is one of the best managers in the world, because he clearly had done his homework and he penned us back, and that was to do with our fullbacks rather than down the middle. Then with Alderweireld going off, you have to take your hat off to Wanyama for being able to just to slot into that position as if it was his own, and he's kept probably one of the best players in the world, Guerrero, in his back pocket for the last half an hour of the game. I mean, the guy's an absolute beast, and as you say, £11 million, what an absolute bargain he's turned out to be.
Truly phenomenal. I mean, like I say, 5 tackles made against Man City, more than any other player on the pitch. I want to come to you next, Jace. A guy, for me, Harry Winks. I mean, I want to say firstly, Pochettino, the kind of risk management this guy employs here. So you've got Toby Alderweireld coming off. many would maybe call to maybe put another defender on. This guy says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put Harry Winks in the middle. I'm going to revert back Victor Wanyama. Just how brave is that? And just Harry Winks as well. How much ground did he cover? And he looked so equally calm in possession. What do you think of it?
I think the most important thing that he did, he came on and brought us a little bit of composure because, as I said, I still thought even in that second half, there was a lot of the second half we were poor. Even the moment we got to 2-2, we saw Gabriel Jesus go close a couple of times and have his goal disallowed. So even then we were still a little bit rocky. But Harry Winks definitely came on and he did look, we see him do, doesn't he? He does the simple things really well at the moment. He doesn't try and get too expensive. He doesn't play above his perceived level at the moment. Just does the simple things, gets it, gives it, but does it with that coolness of head, and he does it to always seems to go to a white shirt. And that was important in trying to help us stem some of that flow, because certainly in midfield with Dembele having gone off and Victor Wanyama going backwards, he suddenly found himself pretty much on his own up against Yaya Toure in there. And okay, Yaya's not the Yaya of old, but he's still an imposing person, and he still has a big standing in the game. So for Winks to come over and play as he did, that's what you want him to do. And he is becoming it's becoming a difficult thing, isn't it, to justify him being left out of the side. I'm sure we'll see him start on Saturday, but he's pushing really close now to starting Premier League games.
Yeah, you would think he'll get that start against Wycombe. I mean, if he'll get the start in the next Premier League game, that remains to be seen. But he's a player that is improving game upon game, and you can see obviously the reason why we let Tommy Carroll go, and obviously have promoted Winks as such further forward. Going to come to you next, Ian. A stat for you here. Tottenham Hotspur have now accumulated 46 points after 22 Premier League games. That's 7 points better off than this stage last season. Does it feel like it? And I only ask that because this time last season, it seemed that we were everyone was maybe speaking about us a little bit more because it was kind of us and Leicester. With the likes what we've seen this weekend of Chelsea winning again, what do you make of this? Are we still in a title race, or are we competing in reality for second?
You're asking me a maths question again, Rick, aren't you?
I know the answer. You'll probably give me the mathematical
Okay, I'm going to go with what Jason said last week. I think we are definitely in the race for a top 4 place. 9 points, was it 8 or 9 points now from Chelsea? I can't see them slipping up. So I'm going to say that whilst it's not mathematically impossible for us, it's highly improbable that Chelsea will drop the points that we need to draw closely with them in the race for the title. So I think that we might not just make that target, but if we can get second again or third, I'd be sort of like, I'd accept it. But does it feel like it, that we've got better? I don't think it has, because I think we've all accepted on the pod recently that we haven't hit top form yet. And I know the West Brom game was as close as we've got to it, but we went on a consistent run on a number of occasions last year. Yep. And we had no issues with injuries, and I would like to see us, like you've said, Rick, on many occasions on the pod, I'd like to see us with a full strength 11, with all of our players, hitting top form at the same time, because I think that's when we would see what this team's really made of. At the moment, we're having to rely on the individual brilliance of some players and the collective effort of others, and the actual, the intelligence of our manager to sort of keep grinding out the results. So, I think that once we get the people back and we're hitting top form, then we can perhaps answer that question. Hopefully, there'll be still games for us to change things, but I think I'm saying that we're probably just out of the title race, but we're well in the race for the next 3 places, if you get my drift.
Yeah, no, completely agree. At the moment, it's going to be very, very tough. Coming to you, James, I mean, at the moment, Spurs have only one team left in the top 10 to play away this season, while Chelsea have 5 left to play. Is there any kind of solace grabbing onto that, or are you also of the agreement that at the moment the gap is looking a bit too lengthy to trim?
I'd say at the moment, yeah, the gap definitely is a bit ominous, and when Chelsea get into top gear. They really are unplayable. I mean, we saw it against them at Stamford Bridge. They were absolutely brilliant. But I mean, then we showed against them at White Hart Lane that we are exactly the same. You know, when we play well, nobody can beat us. But that is the issue with Tottenham and with teams in the lower half of the league, is that teams sit back against us, and that doesn't necessarily suit our style of play. So playing against the lower league teams might not necessarily suit us. I mean, Chelsea came out and attacked us at White Hart Lane, and they didn't know what hit them. Yeah. You know, so playing against top teams might suit us more. But you know, we saw against West Brom that we might be seeing a shift in that kind of thing. You know, that with our fullbacks can run at anyone, and so therefore we can make our own space rather than having the away team making that space for us.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Jace, quick thoughts on that. What do you reckon at the moment?
Well, I think we'll know the answer to that in 2 weeks' time once Chelsea have gone to Anfield and they've played Arsenal at home. You know, if they were to lose those 2 games, then and providing we win our 2, then you know we're very much then in a race. But I think I would honestly say I think if Chelsea go to Liverpool and even just draw, then we're reaching that stage where it's probably better for us to say we'd sooner see Chelsea beat Arsenal, because then the top 4 becomes the realistic aim, I think. You know, if you look at Chelsea, with the number of points they got now, I feel the worst Chelsea will do is get to 85 points. At the very worst. They'd have to lose, I think, 4 games and draw 3 and win the rest to even finish at 85 points. So that's the best I can see our hopes for Chelsea. And to do that, we'd then have to win, 12 and draw 4 of our last 16. So we can't afford any slip-up. I think it's going to be hard. And the other thing is, even though we've got bottom sides away from home, let's be fair, when you get down to that business end of the season, the last 10 games, you know, if it's Crystal Palace away and they're battling against relegation and that, then that's no easier game than, you know, you'd perhaps sooner have a mid-table club away from home than some of those bottom clubs. And even a club like Burnley, we've got to go away from, whilst they're I think now in the bottom half, aren't they, Burnley? They've picked up, 20, I think they've got the 3rd best home record. So just to say we've got the bottom 10 away from home type of thing, and that doesn't really give you the full picture.
No, fair enough. It is going to be tough. I mean, all we can do is keep hanging on in there. I mean, at the same time, we've got to keep getting our results and hope that Chelsea slip up. But at the moment, there is a lot of experience in that Chelsea side. And same as yesterday, they do seem to be grinding out the results, getting the job done. And a case, like I say, we've just got to keep on doing ours. I do want to say, lads, I'm sure we're all going to echo this, that Ryan Mason yesterday went down, unfortunately got taken off. The news today seems to be better, that he is now awake and talking in hospital. So obviously a former Spurs player, but regardless, Ryan, we wish you all the very best. And lads, I'm sure you echo those sentiments. Definitely. Hopefully he's back on a football field very, very soon. Guys, just want to get your quick thoughts on it. The stadium. Now, we saw on, I think it was last Friday now, the virtual reality of it. What do you make of it? Very quickly, just going around the table. We'll come to you first, James. Did you get a chance to watch that glimpse video on the Spurs official Twitter?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I watched the whole thing through a couple of times. My only worry is it's aimed a bit high level. You know, that they showed all these bars and all these glorious new things. I mean, what we want at the end of the day is a stadium that's got atmosphere, because you look at West Ham with the Olympic Stadium, it may be an amazing stadium and it may be beautiful and have all these amenities, but at the end of the day, the atmosphere there is terrible, and it takes its toll on the players, you know? Yeah. And that's what we cannot have.
No, it's a great point you make there, James. What do you make of that, Jace? You can't take the Tottenham out of Tottenham there, but what did you make of the stadium?
Well, the images look really good, don't they? But, I mean, as James said, there's not too many of us are going to be in, the Tunnel Club. And actually, even if I was at football, not so sure I'd want to feel like I'm sitting there eating me lasagna or me beef Wellington or whatever while the players are standing next to me in the tunnel. I just, you know, that's from the corporate boys, isn't it? The prawn sandwich brigade, and let them have their day. I think all we want to do is know how much those seats behind the goal are and how much a pint is going to be in a normal bar.
Yeah, no, it very much is about success on the pitch, and that mustn't detract away from, although as great as the stadium looks, it is still about the investment in the squad and getting the results on the pitch. Ian, coming to you finally, what did you make of the stadium?
Well, I was intrigued to hear that they've employed the same consultants that provide the same sort of acoustics for like the U2 concerts. You know, everybody has sort of said about the current White Hart Lane how good the atmosphere is on those nights when we can get the stadium rocking, and it'll be interesting to see whether the money for that has been well spent, because that's my biggest fear of going into a new stadium. You know, is making sure that you get the atmosphere right, and that's the important thing for me. And as James has just said, you know, it's what's important is I call it the 50-odd thousand people in the majority of the stadium that will be there, you know, and what will happen when they all start singing and getting behind the team. And as long as that transfers to the players on the pitch and to the general ambience of the place, then it's been money well spent.
Yeah, no, exactly, and I think very like you guys have picked up on there, the atmosphere, we mustn't lose that. I mean, at the Lane at the moment, teams are coming to Spurs and they're fearing us. You know, let's not make any bones about it. It is a fortress at the moment at White Hart Lane. I think it's something along the lines of 2 defeats in the last 29 home league games. You know, the only team that I think at the moment home record unbeaten this season. It would be fantastic if we could, like I say, leave White Hart Lane with that kind of record in place of being unbeaten there. But I mean, it's no surprise, the atmosphere at the Lane, the way it is generated, teams come to fear us, they put 11 men behind the ball, and again it's one of those cases where it's very much try and break us down, but the fans do act as a 12th man, and we mustn't lose that. We mustn't lose that spirit, because it's a fantastic thing to have and it is an advantage. Ian, before we move on to the questions, I know you wanted to give the ladies football team, the Spurs team, a bit of a brief mention.
Yeah, you know, I follow them on social media, and you know, they've been banging in goals for fun recently, and just like to, you know, mention them on the pod and say, you know, well done ladies, it's been really good, and let's hope we can keep the run going. You know, I know they've had the last 2 games postponed due to, you know, bad pitches and all of that, but let's hope that they can carry on with this winning run. Good on them.
And amen, fingers crossed. Like I say, all of Spurs connected, whether it's the youth, whether it's the first team or whether it's the ladies team, if as long as they're successful around, that's all great for us. What we're going to do now, guys, is take a quick break and we'll have your questions for the panel. Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. As always, we ask you to get in touch with us every week with regards to any questions you have THFC related. If you would like to get in touch with the pod and have your question answered, all you've got to do is tweet our e-Spurs Twitter account, which is at @e_Spurs. Simply leave your question for the panel and end your tweet in #eSpursPod, and you can also be involved in our topic of debate every week on the podcast. As always, you get into us in your droves, and tonight, like I say, we've got loads of questions to kind of get through, so we'll try and rattle through them as quick as we can, but give you the answers you want. Tonight we're going to come first to you, Jace. We've got Ryder Hotchmuth at Ryder Hotchmuth, who asks, do you think we were out-coached or outplayed against Manchester City, and why were we not able to play the way we wanted?
Well, I think as we touched on earlier, that the biggest part of that is we probably were outplayed. And Guardiola won that battle, and you know, when we changed from a back 3 into a back 4 and we moved Eric Dyer into midfield, it just seemed to me whatever we tried to do in the game, you know, their performance was such that it just wasn't working. So I think you have to hold your hands up and say, look, on the day they were much the better side and we were fortunate to get out of it with a point. But, you know, that's what happens in football. It was just one of those days for us where, you know, you're just grateful that we did get out of it with a point.
I was going to say, Jace, very quickly on that point before we move on, do we need to give Pochettino some credit for that? Because previously we've always said that maybe the pressing game, when it's imposed on us, we don't seemingly have a response for it. We saw it against Chelsea, when Chelsea done it to us at Stamford Bridge. We've seen Spurs change the game now against the likes of West Ham. We turned that game on its head against Manchester City. Is it a case that this Spurs side are slowly learning now? Is it a case where Pochettino is now starting to change things in the game, in the middle of the game, and it's actually working? Does we give the manager some credit for that?
I think overall, yes, but he's been right to be able to change things, and we've shown a lot more maturity in that way this season. I think Saturday, if I'm being brutally honest, we were second best for me throughout the 90 minutes, and whilst the second half was better than the first half, we were still second best in that second half. So, you know, they did a job on us, and I think it's just a case of, if you'd have said Hugo's going to make two almighty mistakes, we're not going to play well, we're going to have Toby going off, and we'll have a 2-2 draw out of it, then I think we'd have all just thought, well, that's definitely a bonus point.
We're going to come to you next, Ian. We've got Harry Charalambos at Hasspur, who asks, where was the aggression and will to impose ourselves on City and their awful defence? We seemed rattled when they came at us.
Yeah, good question, Harry. I think that we touched on it, and I think we have to give some credit to Pep and the way he sent his team out. I think that unless we start at a pace away from home, it's very easy for a decent side like City to impose themselves on us. And what I saw, yes, we seemed rattled, but I think that, when you think of it, we were getting to the stage where our fullbacks were getting pushed back, and there were a number of occasions where our fullbacks weren't doing the job of a fullback, and that is to get goal side of the player, because you look at the incident in the second half with Sterling. If Walker is side by side, I put my mortgage money on Walker to outrun Sterling every day of the week, but he'd given him about 2 or 3 yards. So we set out with a game plan, but Manchester City's was probably better for them on the day than ours was for us.
He did the same with Sane as well, didn't he, Ian?
Yeah.
Where Walker gave him too much space, and as much as a mistake of Hugo's, there were other mistakes in the build-up to both goals as well.
Exactly.
I'm going to come next to you, James. We've got a question here from DP at Podspur, and he says, incredible fight to come back from 2-0, but what was so different in defence from previous brilliant performances? James, would you say that would be down to the case where we haven't got Jan available next to Toby? Would that be as much the reason behind that?
Yeah, I mean, when we've got Jan and Toby at the back with Eric Dyer, we look so much more solid as to when we've got another one in there. And in this case, it's going to be Kevin Wimmer. He didn't have the best game. He's filled in for Vertonghen brilliantly in the past, and you can't knock him for that. He was absolutely brilliant last season when Vertonghen was out, and he's brilliant again this season when we've called upon him. But he didn't have a great first half. That's probably why he was pulled off when the system changed. We clearly need that fourth centre-half, and he has filled in brilliantly. And coming back from 2-0 down in that case, absolutely, brilliant.
Yeah, this guy is arguably the understudy to Jan Vertonghen. He's certainly, like I say, it's difficult when you don't have a run of games to just be put in Man City away and just be asked to perform. We've seen last season how much, like I say, he was pivotal to us when, again, Jan got injured and he stepped in, he done the job. We're going to come to you next, Jace. We've got a question here from Godar Horse, who says, Lamela, Jan, Toby all missing. Do we have the depth to contend for the title or even top 4? Now, I know we've touched upon the title and the top 4 already, but I just want to make a point, Jace. This whole Lamela situation, what do you make of it? There's a lot of murmurings at the moment with regards to Lamela. What's your feelings on the situation with him?
It's hard to know because we're not privy to the information that the club have got, have they? Incidentally, it was Jonathan Woodgate spent all his time injured in his career, didn't he? And yet he never struggled to pass a medical at any club that he went to. And, perhaps it is a mental issue. Really hard to tell. And in respect of how we got the depth to contend with, I think this season has shown we absolutely have got the depth to contend with because we've been missing 9 players. Yeah. We've missed Harry and Toby, key players for a lot of the season. Moussa Dembele must have missed how many? 8, 9 first team games now, and there we are in third place. So we have definitely got the depth for a top 4 spot. Whether we've got it for a title is probably, you would say no, but I think the difference is if we lost 4 or 5 people injured all at the same time, I think any team would suffer. Come on, let's be fair. Have Chelsea got the depth if that was Azpilicueta, Eden Hazard, Thibaut Courtois, Kante and Costa were all out? If all 5 of them were missing for a game, I think anyone would miss them. We've seen Liverpool, haven't we, struggle in recent weeks with players missing, and Mane at the African Cup of Nations. So I think any side will miss a large number of players, but we absolutely have got the depth because we wouldn't be third if we didn't have the depth. And
again, I'd say the point you make there is it's crazy. We have missed players, I say the likes of even Hugo, Danny Rose, Vertonghen and Alderweireld now that have been out. So it really does show that the squad is pulling together. We've got the likes of Heung-min Son, an impact player from the bench getting goals. We've got Dele Alli now. Again, I say he's already beaten his tally from last season. He's, like I say, scoring now on a regular basis. So there's more than enough in that Spurs squad in terms of players that are coming on making the difference. It now just is a case of if Chelsea will slip up. But again, all remains to be seen. Would we miss him, Jace, if he was to leave Spurs? I know it sounds crazy because we've always been saying that this is a guy that, you know, he gives us another dimension to the squad, but you would argue at the moment he wouldn't get in it, would he? So if he was to go at the end of the season, some are speculating that it might be a homesick issue. Would we miss him?
We're certainly not missing him results-wise at the moment. Although, in fairness, you know, Manchester City away was the type of game that perhaps we did need a little bit of help from one of the two of the wide areas. So maybe he would have helped a little bit, although I'm not so sure just having Lamela in the side Saturday would have changed the game that much. As I say, I'm not comfortable with anything talking or speculating on issues of his mental health. It's just, for me, that's a no-go area, and, you know, if he has got mental health problems, whatever, that's for the club to work out and for him to sort out and such, and you just have a bit of sympathy. But I don't even want to speculate on things like that.
No, fair enough. That's absolutely fine. We're going to come back round. We're going to go to you next, Ian. We've got a question here from Jack Brohammer, at Jack Brohammer 3, who asks, who pairs with Dyer at centre-back? Wimmer had a rough half against Manchester City, but doubt Davis, Cameron Carter-Vickers or Wanyama will play there. I think obviously this is going on the lines of if Toby Alderweireld is injured, which we're not too sure the situation is. What are you making of that? And I think he's obviously presuming for the Wycombe game.
I think for the Wycombe game, I think we'll see Cameron Carter-Vickers, you know, similar to the squad that we saw line up against Aston Villa. In the Premier League, I'm hopeful that the noises coming out of the club are that Toby should be okay for the Sunderland away. You know, I think there's two parts of the question. I think who pairs with Dyer at centre-back for the Wycombe game, then I think it'll be Cameron Carter-Vickers. And then for the Sunderland game later on next week, you know, I think it will be, you know, Toby will come back.
I think it's a little bit unfair to single Wimmer out, because whilst he didn't have a great first half, none of us would deny that. You know, look at Hugo's performance Saturday, and did Kevin Wimmer perform any worse than Hugo? So,
no, I mean,
you know,
listen, Jason,
it's the first time he's really had a bad run, isn't it? I mean, he's played 4 games this year, and when you look at them, it's been Chelsea away, Arsenal away, Man City away. Yeah. So you've asked the bloke to come in and into the hardest possible games, and the fact that he's come in and done the job in the other case, okay, he's even got the own goal, didn't he, at the Emirates? So he's probably lacking a little bit of confidence, but I don't think you can rip him to pieces too much over 45 minutes at a really good side.
I wasn't ripping him to pieces. I was just trying to, answer the question that was raised. I think that, if we're going to come back to playing 3 at the back, then I think, we'll go with Wimmer, Toby and Dyer. I do think that if that's what we're going to do at Sunderland away, then they're going to be the back 3.
Yeah, it wasn't you, Ian. It's the fact that questions like that come up because of somebody's had a bad 45 minutes, and you think, come on, everyone's entitled to a bad day at work some stage. And as I say, Hugo had a bad one, and we certainly wouldn't talk about picking Michel Vaughan, would we, for the next 5 games because Hugo's had a bad day.
True.
No, I mean, again, like you said there, the guy needs time. He's not just going to come in and, he can't just perform, as and when straight away. The guy will need games, and it's very hard to be, like you've said there, thrown in to Man City away and just be expected to, get up to speed with the Premier League. It does take time, but, I'm sure the guy will get games in the weeks to come. So we'll have to wait and see. We're going to come back round to you, James. We've got Aaron Spurs, at Aaron Spurs, who says, with Son and Winks in such good form, should we switch to 4-2-3-1 in the Premier League with one of them starting?
Just to echo what the boys were saying there, I can't see any reason why Kevin Wimmer would want dropping or would deserve dropping. He filled in. His personal performances are the reason that he's pushing for a starting position, not anything to do with Vertonghen's injury. But I just don't see the point in changing our system when we can just as easily slot Wimmer in there next to Dyer and Alderweireld. And then we've always got that security belt of having Harry Winks come off the bench like he did against Man City, and he has that composure that can calm the game down. And just as equally, we've got with Son coming off the bench, he's the opposite influence. He can add a bit of energy to the front line. I mean, you bring Son on for Eriksen or Ali, and it's immediately that counter-attacking threat that saw us score that equaliser at Man City. So no, I mean, I don't see the point in changing the system. We might as well keep the system the same if we can.
Yeah, no, indeed. What do you make of Son, James? Just out of interest, because he's a guy that he does split opinion at times. For me personally, he seems to be a fantastic impact player, but whenever he's rewarded with a start, he seems to let us down. What do you make of it? He does seem a player that seems better off the bench. Would you go along the lines of that? Definitely,
yeah, definitely. I mean, you're right in that he splits opinion with people because he has got the capacity just to go missing in games, but you know, that's exactly the same for Christian Eriksen and even Dele Alli, and you don't even talk about dropping them. Even Harry Kane away at Man United was absolutely anonymous, but we don't talk about dropping him. You know, Son is definitely the kind of man that you want coming off the bench, as is Moussa Sissoko. That's that kind of player who can pick the ball immediately, just inject energy into your side. That's what you want. You want him running at tired legs, tired fullbacks, tired centre halves, and really seeing that game out or nicking an equaliser like he did at the end.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's just hopefully Pochettino can carry on the man management of these players to keep them happy enough to sit on the bench, because you would argue the likes of Mr. Sissoko, the likes of, like I say, Heung-min Son, we're talking about players here that could arguably, outside the top 6 of the Premier League, go and be a regular starter. How happy are these players to be part of a squad? Let's hope they are. Final couple of questions of the night, lads. We're going to go round to the table and all here just very quickly. I know we can't help it. It's the transfer window, so we are going to have a bit of a transfer window question. Sorry, lads. I know we do this every week. Just maybe a yes or no on this one round the table. Going to come to you first, Ian. Hot Shot Tottenham at Yido90, who says, are we still lacking that player who can give us that bit of extra quality in the big games? One away win against the top 4 in 2 years. Quick yes or no, lads. Do we need to maybe invest? Jace, yes or no?
Maybe.
Yes, maybe. Okay. Ian, to you, yes or no?
I'm going to say exactly the same as what Jason just said. Maybe.
Oh, sitting on the fence. James, are you going to give us an answer? What do you think, James? Is there a need for an investment there, or are you still happy with the squad on the basis of what we've spoken about, players coming off the bench, making a difference with the likes of Son, Sissoko?
I think there can always be an improvement. I mean, it's fairly clear that Vincent Janssen maybe isn't going to work out, so I'm going to say maybe as well.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, like I say, we've only got, it's 7 days left of the window to go. Are we seeing anything happening? Not much. I think it's more of a case that the Twitters, or the people out there on Twitter are creating more speculation than the club itself. It's a very bizarre window for Spurs. We haven't been linked to many players, and it's probably the first time in years in which there hasn't been the continual links to strikers, and it's definitely a change of times within Spurs where there definitely seems to be more of a kind of, you could argue, a structure in the club, or maybe less of a structure where we aren't getting regularly linked to players. Maybe it's a sign of the times that we're happy with the squad, and it would take an exceptional player, and especially in January, for us to maybe look to buy. But I think at the moment it's safe to say there's not much on the horizon.
There was 2 strikers not on the bench on Saturday, wasn't there, Rick? There was no Vincent Janssen, and more importantly for me, and you know my feelings off air on that, there was no Iheanacho on the bench. And I'd like to see us. I'm not so sure Pep's a big Iheanacho fan. I really would like to see us go and just explore the possibility of getting hold of Iheanacho, because I think I just see a really raw Jermaine Defoe in him and a definite upgrade on Berahino.
Could we tempt him away though, Jace? What do you think? Are City going to sell to Spurs? It's a direct rival, if you like, when you look at it. I mean, listen, he looks, like you said, like a raw young player with the potential to be a really, really good player. Could we tempt him away, though?
I think if he thought he wasn't going to be playing that much football at Manchester City, I think anyone's open to a move. And I actually think Guardiola is at a stage where if he wants a player out, you see that with Joe Hart. He wouldn't have cared if it had been Liverpool that had come in. He just wanted a player out of the club. And so, January might not be easy, but I'd really like us to visit that in the summer. I really would.
Yeah, well, let's wait and see. You never know with Spurs. It's one of those things where, I think that move would be highly unlikely, but, maybe Potter's out there listening to you, Jace. Who knows? We're going to end the night with a question of one of our own, John Mannings at John THFC, who says, after Pep Guardiola famously pioneered the false 9 position whilst at Barcelona involving Lionel Messi, what do the panel think of his revolutionary new false 1 tactic, which Claudio Bravo has mastered so quickly? What do you guys, listen, I know we've got Hugo wasn't, covered himself in glory at the weekend, but City's goalkeeper there, I tell you what, it could be the difference between them, maybe making the Champions League or not at the moment. What do you reckon of it, lads? Very quick one. Couple of you first, James. What do you reckon of it?
Looking at Claudio Bravo, he really does make me appreciate what we've got in Hugo Lloris, So, he's doing something for us. He's only saved 2 or 3 shots of this season, hasn't he? He's only, of the shots he's faced, they've all gone in.
Yeah,
it really does make me appreciate what we've got in Hugo Lloris, really? And you know we'll allow him the mistakes of the weekend if he's going to produce the saves that he does week in, week out.
Yeah, exactly. Very good point. Saves us God knows how many points week upon week. Jace, Ian, did you want to add on that to John at all? What do you make of that point?
Well, he didn't look as good a goalkeeper as Harry Kane, does he? So I think that sums it up. I felt a bit sorry for him. He didn't have a cat in hell's chance with either of the 2 goals, did he? In fairness to him, and playing in front of that back 4 every week, where teams do have chances, don't they? Teams create too many chances against Man City than you really should do against a top side, so that doesn't help him either. But let them solve that problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. Ian, any words on Claudio Bravo's performance?
Well, I saw a stat that in 2017 he's only made 1 save in all the games he's played. He's only got a hand to the ball on 1 occasion. So, I think that if this is the next best thing from Guardiola, then let's everybody take advantage of it, eh?
Apparently he's only made 3 in the warm-up as well.
Yeah, well indeed, it does make you appreciate Hugo Lloris even more, and he came out this week very quickly on Hugo. He said that he will never leave Tottenham Hotspur whilst Mauricio Pochettino is in charge. I hope he means that. Pochettino, for us, I think we all are along the lines of we'd love to see this guy build a legacy at Spurs, and I mean on that City game, as we've said, it's just unlike Spurs. A Spurs team of years ago you would arguably crumble. We saw the likes of the AVB sides, and even with Redknapp it's a fantastic time to be a fan. We've got a fantastic manager there, and like I say, onwards and upwards. Guys, we're going to quickly go and preview the FA Cup tie this weekend against Wycombe this coming Saturday. We're assuming it's going to be a bit more of a kind of a mixture of youth and maybe fringe players that haven't necessarily got a start. James, you're new to the pod. Want to get your take on it. How important are the cups to you? What do you feel about Pochettino's cup selections in the past?
I think his cup selections make complete sense in terms of the domestic cups, the FA Cup and the League Cup. I didn't agree with his Champions League selections, I'm not going to lie, and his Europa League selections last year. That was also something that had me up in arms, really. And I think if he treats the Europa League in the same way as he did last year, then we could have another issue. But in terms of the FA Cup, I think that cup is a perfect opportunity to blood the players who aren't getting as much game time in the Premier League, as you say. And I think players like Moussa Sissoko and Son, who have been coming off the bench and making a really good account of themselves, I think it's a really good thing that they can get some game time. Harry Winks has done more than enough to deserve a start. Players like Cameron Carter, because we can see them coming through, and it's really exciting for us to be able to put a side like that out and still be able to compete.
I'm going to come back to you soon, James, for your prediction. Can I come next to you, Jace?
Excellent.
One player I want to ask you about, Vincent Janssen. I think he's missed the last 3 matchday Premier League squads. Is it arguably, time running out for this chap? Will he be involved Saturday? I mean, that remains to be seen. But if he is involved Saturday, God, how is it important that we see a performance and maybe a couple of goals from him?
Yeah, I expect him to be involved because I think we will pick a very similar side to that Villa, and even though Son will have now got himself a starting place, I think he'll take the place of, say, an Eriksson, and Sissoko or whatever will take the place of Dele Alli, so there's still room to pick Vincent Janssen. Let's just hope it does. There is goals in him. You saw that from his playing days in Holland. There are goals in him, and you've seen him score goals on the international scene. So Wycombe's the great chance, isn't it? Home game. Just looking at Wycombe, they've let in 28 goals in 26 games themselves in League Two. So you would hope that he'll take that chance, won't he? But it is getting to that stage where you feel that if he has another 60 minutes goalless, that he'll get himself hooked, and we won't see him again then. Well, no idea when we'll then next see him.
No, like I say, it's a game where if he is starting, it'd be great to see him get a couple of goals confidence-wise. Coming to you, Ian, what do you make of the game? It is, like I say, we've discussed, going to be a bit of a mixture of fringe players and youth. Is there anyone in particular you'd like to see start? Maybe the likes of Kevin Nkudu? Haven't seen much of him again. Yeah,
I'd like to see Nkudu start, to see what he's made of, and because I think we've all seen tantalising glimpses of him over the season, and as Jason quite adroitly put it, he was our set to sign man. So it would be good to see what he's made of over 90 minutes against Wycombe, and it would be nice to see Harry Winks get a full 90 minutes and hopefully dictate the play, like we saw him do on his little cameo on Saturday. So that's what I want to see, and it'd be good to get, like the Cameron Carter-Vickers. Let's hope that Marcus Edwards is back to some sort of fitness and can feature off the bench. So there's a lot of things it'll be good to see. Whether we see them or not is another matter. But that's what I'd like to see. Some of the younger players coming through and being given the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm into that, and I completely agree with you. It would be nice to see a bit of a mixture again. I think Pochettino got the selection spot on before in the previous game against Aston Villa, because what we needed in there, like I say, if you're going to play Kevin Wimmer, or you're going to have that bit of experience of Toby Alderweireld in there. Maybe this game around we won't have that because of, like I say, the injuries to both Jan and Toby, so it may be a case we will have to rely on the likes of a Kevin Wimmer and a Cameron Carter-Vickers or a Ben Davies. But you'd argue there's more than enough experience to negotiate ourselves to the next round of the FA Cup. Let's get some predictions, guys. Let's go first to you, James. What do you think?
I'm going to go for a nice and confident 4-0 Tottenham.
Oh, I like it. 4-0. Going to come to you next, Jace. What do you reckon?
One less. I'll go for 3.
3, okay, fair enough. Still gets us in the next round. Ian, to you?
I'm going to go one less than Jace. I'm going to say 2-0 Spurs.
2-0, okay, God. Okay, I'm going to stop the trend here. I do think, like I say, I'm going to go with James's verdict. I think we are going to get goals. At the same time, I think we may let one in. So I'm going to go 4-1, and hopefully that will see us through to the next round safely of the FA Cup. Guys, as always, been an absolute pleasure tonight. James, as you're with us, do you just want to give out your Twitter account to anyone who might want to follow you?
Yeah, guys, if you want to give me a follow, I'm at J Mccarthy Live. I also do live highlights of the Spurs game as they're on. So if you're ever not around to watch the game, then have a look at Twitter. You'll be able to see the highlights while the game's going on. Yeah, definitely worth an account, guys, checking out if you can. Great to have James with us tonight. Thank you again, James, for tonight. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hopefully have you back on in the future at some point. Yeah, thanks very much for having me, boys. Cheers for the chat. Pleasure, not a problem. And Jace, thank you again.
No problem, mate. Good to catch up.
Great, and Ian, again, thanks to you as well for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Thanks to the guys. It's been a pleasure to listen to you, James.
No problem at all. And guys, just finally, like I said, we echoed in the podcast, thoughts all of us to Ryan Mason. Fingers crossed for a speedy recovery. He'll always be Spurs. And like I say, as always, guys, take care. Have a great week. We'll hopefully speak to you on the back of an FA Cup win. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
We're gonna do it again.